Welcome back, Deep Divers. Today we're going to tackle affordable housing. And we're going really specific, looking at Malaysia,
Yeah, we've got these research papers. One lays out the challenges, even suggests a whole new system based on Islamic finance.
which is so fascinating to me. But the second paper, that's where it gets real. Like, would people actually USE this new system?
That's what we're going to unpack, not just the mechanics, but how it would change lives, on the ground.
Totally. But first, gotta set the stage. Can you give us the lowdown on the housing situation in Malaysia right now? What's making affordable housing such a struggle there?
Well, think fast-growing economy, population booming, cities are packed,
Sounds kind of familiar.
right? So the government's trying, they've got programs like the People's Housing Program, the One Malaysia People-Friendly Home thing, but honestly, demand's still way higher than what they can build. For a lot of families, especially low and middle income, even subsidized housing, it's just not happening.
So even with help, it's not enough.
Nope. And the research lays out three huge problems.
Yeah.
Affordability, getting the financing in the first place, and then keeping these places up and running.
Okay, break it down for us. Starting with affordability, I'm honestly surprised that's still an issue when there are subsidies.
Right, you'd think that'd solve it. But even with that help, financing a home, it's expensive. Whether it's a regular bank or an Islamic bank, those interest rates, they can wipe out whatever you saved from the subsidy.
Makes sense. So it's not just the house price, it's the long game, those monthly payments. What about actually getting a loan?
Big obstacle.
Mhm.
Think about families where income isn't steady, maybe gig work or seasonal stuff. Credit scores might be shaky, not much saved for a down payment. Traditional loans, forget it. Even if they could make the payments, the system's not built for them.
So a whole chunk of people are just shut out. Even with programs in place, it's not reaching everyone.
Exactly. And then, upkeep. You finally get a place, right? Your dream home.
Yeah.
But then repairs are delayed, common areas are neglected. Some folks just don't feel responsible for keeping things nice. It becomes a spiral, the place gets run down, less desirable and less affordable over time.
Ugh, sounds rough. But thankfully, one of the papers proposes a solution, the Islamic Public-Private Housing Cooperative Model. IPHCM for sure, right? Hopefully easier to do than to say.
Right. It really tackles those three problems head on, bypasses traditional banking, and it's got this community-based approach built on three ideas from Islamic finance.
Lay it on us. What are these three concepts? How do they actually make housing more affordable and easier to get?
First one, the cash whack concept.
Yeah.
Basically, a community trust fund specifically for housing, filled by donations from the government, private donors, even the people who want to live there eventually. And it's meant to keep growing, not just a one-time thing.
So a pot of money that keeps refilling itself sounds a lot more stable than just government funding alone.
Way more. Now, second concept, Musyaraka Mutanakisa contract. Imagine renting a place, but as you pay, you're also buying more of it, like a rent-to-own. But your ownership share goes up, rent goes down, until you own the whole thing.
Okay, I like that. No more bank holding all the power, feels more like a team effort.
Exactly. Third one, Ijara contract. This is all about smooth operations. Within these housing projects, they build shops, restaurants, stuff like that. Renting those out creates a steady income stream, covers maintenance and management.
So residents aren't the only ones paying for upkeep. Smart. Building that financial support right into the community. But would people actually BUI into this? It's different.
That's where the second research paper comes in. They looked at how open, low, and middle-income families in Malaysia are to this IPHCM model. And there are three main factors: how they feel about it overall, what their friends and family think, and then how much they personally connect with the Islamic values behind it.
Wow. Okay, lots to unpack there. Let's take them one by one, starting with attitude. What makes someone more likely to say yes to this whole new system?
Well, it's pretty straightforward. If they think this model will actually deliver on its promises, affordable, accessible, better living conditions, then they're more likely to try it. They see it as a solution to the housing mess they're already dealing with.
So trust is key. They gotta believe it'll work. What about the social circle piece? How does that influence their choice?
We're all influenced by people we know, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if your family, friends, neighbors, they're doing well with this model, you're going to think, hey, maybe I should check this out too. Makes it feel more legit, less risky.
Like a community level endorsement.
Exactly. Then there's that third thing, a bit more complex, perceived consumer religiosity. Basically, the study found that folks who felt really connected to their Islamic faith, they saw this model's alignment with Islamic principles as a huge G+.
Yeah.
It just fit with their beliefs.
So it's not just a house, it's got to feel right morally, spiritually.
Exactly. Which brings up a question. Could this work outside of communities with a lot of Muslims? Is it too specific?
Great question. One we should definitely dig into. But first, let's get super practical. Who decides who gets a house in this model? How do the payments actually work?
Those are the million-dollar questions.
Yeah.
And they show how this model is trying to make things fairer. So to get a house in the IPHCM, it starts with joining the housing cooperative. It's not just about affording the payments. It's proving you're in it for the community too.
Like, they're screening for people who are serious about making it work.
Yeah. Low and middle income families, they qualify, but they got to pay a membership fee, kind of like a donation to that Cashwhack fund we talked about.
Ah, so kind of like joining a co-op grocery store. You're not just shopping, you're an owner.
Exactly. And the fee changes based on how much you make, so more people can actually join. Then, the IPH fee, they're the ones who design and build everything. They offer units to the members based on that Musharaka Botanikisa contract, the rent-to-own thing.
So no more lottery or fighting over units. It's organized to make sure everyone in the cooperative gets a fair shot. And that's where this contract shines, right? It sidesteps traditional loans, which we already said are a nightmare for a lot of families.
Totally. It levels the playing field, bad credit, no huge down payment, no problem. Now, those monthly payments, they're set using this thing called a rental rate index.
Okay, so not just some random number, it's based on real estate stuff, actual market data. Makes sense. And as you buy more of the house, rent goes down. Clear path to owning it outright.
You got it. It's all about giving people control over their finances. Another thing people worry about with big housing projects is management. Who keeps things running, make sure repairs happen. In the IPHCM, it's the Housing Maintenance and Management Committee, or HMMC.
Kitschy. So who is on this committee? How do they make decisions?
Mix of people. Elected members from the cooperative, folks from the Ministry of Housing and local government, plus some state agencies. The point is to get residents, government, and experts all in the same room. Everyone has a say.
Makes sense. Got to hear what the people living there actually need. Shared responsibility, that's huge. But even with a good committee, repairs cost money. How does the IPHCM handle that?
A few ways. Residents pay a small fee every month, kept low so it's doable. The IPHC also chips in a big chunk. But this is where those shops and restaurants under the Ijara contract come in.
Ah, so the rent from those businesses helps keep everything maintained, like a built-in moneymaker right there in the community.
Exactly. And now, for something really important about the IPHCM, it follows Islamic principles. It's not just practical, it's ethical too.
Right, we touched on this before, but for anyone not super familiar with Islamic finance, what are the main ideas? How does this model actually reflect them?
Okay, so Islamic finance follows Sharia law. It has rules, can't earn interest, can't be super risky, can't invest in certain industries, stuff like that. It's all about being fair, being transparent, sharing the risk.
So it's not just avoiding bad stuff, it's doing business in a way that feels right. And how do these ideas play out in the IPHCM?
We'll take the cash walk concept, that community fund. It's all about helping people, not about profit, purely for everyone's good. Then there's that rent-to-own contract. It's about sharing the risk, A&D, the reward, between the cooperative and the person living there. Way different from how banks usually do things.
Right, this feels less like every man for himself and more like we're all in this together. But could this model work in other countries, or is it too tied to one culture?
That's a really big question. I think the answer depends on how we see the heart of the IPHCM. Yeah, it's Islamic finance, but the ideas behind it. Community owning things, keeping it affordable, making it last. Those aren't just for one religion or one place.
So like the basic blueprint can be adjusted to fit different cultures' values.
Exactly. What if we had similar cooperatives but based on, like, environmental stuff or social justice or making sure it works for different generations? It's about taking what's good and making it work for everyone, everywhere.
Love that. Big picture stuff. But a common worry with cooperatives is what about bad management? Corruption? How's the IPHCM different?
Transparency and accountability, that's how. Remember that committee we talked about? They don't just make choices, they got to make them ethically, responsibly.
Checks and balances so nobody's taking advantage of the system.
Exactly. And the government and experts being involved. That adds extra eyes, making sure things stay clean.
So it's not just about a roof over your head, it's about giving people a voice, making the community stronger.
You got it. The IPHCM isn't just housing, it's a test. Like, what if we built our neighborhoods on shared ownership, helping each other out, and making sure things last?
And then think about the ripple effects. Less crime, maybe? Better schools, more people involved in their community.
All worth looking into. We need studies to track how this model changes things long-term, not just in Malaysia, but globally.
It's exciting to imagine, honestly, cooperatives everywhere, making the world fairer.
A vision we're fighting for. And even if the IPHCM isn't perfect, it proves we can shake things up, try new things, when we're dealing with big problems like affordable housing.
And who knows, maybe our chat right now will spark some ideas, lead to even better solutions down the line.
Here's hoping. But before we go too far, got to bring it back to the research. There's one piece of the IPHCM we haven't touched on, the Sharia scholars.
Oh, yeah, that's where the Islamic principles get really interesting. Why are they so important?
Because they make sure everything's actually following Islamic law, no conflicts with Sharia. They're called the Sharia Advisory Committee, or SAC.
So, like the ethical watchdogs, making sure nobody's cutting corners, everything's truly legit.
Exactly. They check the contracts, every agreement, to make sure nothing goes against Islamic law. For Muslim residents who want to live according to their faith, this is huge E.
Shows real commitment. And it makes you think religion can be more than just words, right? Sometimes it's about making real change, helping people on a practical level.
Absolutely. Faith and action working together.
Yeah.
But here's something I'm curious about. How sustainable is this long term? It needs people to be involved, to care about the community. Can you keep that going, especially as time passes, new generations come in?
Now, that's a great question. It really gets to whether this could be a lasting solution, not just a temporary fix. I don't know for sure, but I think it comes back to that cooperative idea. It's not just giving folks a place to live, it's creating a place where everyone's invested in how it works. If they feel like they own it, not just their apartment, but the whole project, they'll want to keep it going, right?
Yeah, that sense of belonging, of taking care of what's yours, that can last longer than just one generation.
And the IPHC, they'd be there for the long haul too, right? Not just building it and walking away, but helping the community grow and change over time.
Definitely. It's got to be an ongoing thing. The IPHC adapting as the community does.
Honestly, this whole deep dive has made me really rethink how we do housing, especially those alternative models, pulling ideas from different cultures, religions.
It's been fascinating, that's for sure. The big lesson, think outside the box. Especially with problems this big, we need fresh solutions.
Totally. The IPHCM might not be perfect, but it shows we can mix doing good with actually getting stuff done.
And it makes us look beyond what we're used to. How do other societies tackle this? What can we learn?
Okay, let's wrap this up. What are the big takeaways for our listeners? What should they be thinking about as they go deeper into this topic?
Let's sum it up. First, we need new housing solutions. Fair ones.
Yeah.
Especially in places growing as fast as Malaysia.
Right. And the IPHCM shows us one way to do it. Community ownership, ethical money stuff, making sure it lasts.
Yep. And even though it comes from Islamic principles, those ideas, community, affordability, sustainability, those are universal.
Exactly. It's proof that this model, or at least the thinking behind it, could work anywhere. So what questions should our listener be asking now?
Here's a good one. How could we take the IPHCM ideas and make them fit your community, your values?
I love that. Gets people thinking creatively, finding solutions that are both practical and meaningful to them.
Another one to ponder. What about religious groups? Can they help with affordable housing? Can they build stronger, fairer communities?
So interesting, right? Where does faith meet social justice? Where does it meet economic empowerment?
And lastly, this one's for everyone. What can you do right where you are to support affordable housing? What can you do to push for better policies?
That's a call to action. We all have a part to play in this, making a world where everyone has a safe, affordable, decent place to live.
Couldn't have said it better myself. This deep dive has been amazing. Thanks for sharing your knowledge with us.
The pleasure was all mine. I hope everyone listening feels fired up, ready to learn more, and do something about this. Until next time, deep divers.